The night air was heavy with the kind of stillness that only cities have after midnight, that uneasy quiet between sirens. Officer Daniels sat in his patrol car outside a row of shuttered shops, the hum of the engine his only company. His fingers drummed on the steering wheel, impatient, irritated. He'd been on the force 12 years, long enough to believe he'd seen everything: the dealers on corners, the drunks in alleys, the suspicious ones who always seemed to look a certain way. The city hadn't changed, but lately, it felt like the world around him was. Everyone with a camera, everyone ready to call him the villain. When the black sedan rolled to a smooth stop near the cafe across the street, his focus sharpened. The car was too nice for this neighborhood: polished, tinted windows, not a scratch on it. He leaned forward, narrowing his eyes as a man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, maybe mid-30s. His suit was sharp, expensive, the kind Daniels associated with lawyers or politicians. But there was something about him, the calm way he moved, the quiet confidence, that rubbed Daniels the wrong way. He watched the man glance around briefly, pull out his phone, and start typing. "Yeah, right," Daniels muttered under his breath. "Could be casing the place." He reached for the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Got a possible 10 to 37 near Maple and 5th. Black male, mid-30s, in a dark suit, acting suspicious near closed businesses." The dispatcher's voice came through, uninterested. "Copy that, Unit 12. Proceed with caution." Daniels didn't need more permission. His boots hit the pavement hard as he crossed the street, hand resting on his holster. The man looked up just as Daniels approached. "Evening, officer," the man said evenly, lowering his phone. His tone was polite, but not submissive, the kind that didn't ask for approval. That tone alone set Daniels' teeth on edge. "What are you doing out here this late?" Daniels asked, standing just a little too close. "Waiting for someone," the man replied. "Is there a problem?" "That depends," Daniels said. "Mind showing me some ID?" The man frowned, clearly surprised but not frightened. "I don't see why that's necessary. I'm just..." Daniels cut him off. "I asked for ID. You can explain it downtown if you'd prefer." A few people outside a nearby bar had turned their heads. Phones started to appear, screens glowing in the dim light. Daniels could feel the eyes on him, but he pressed forward, needing to assert control. The man sighed, reached slowly into his jacket pocket, and pulled out a wallet. Daniels snatched it before he could even flip it open. His eyes scanned the driver's license, Jordan Wells. No warrants came up when he ran the name on his device, but that didn't matter. Something about this guy, the calmness, the quiet certainty, felt like defiance. "Step away from the vehicle," Daniels ordered. "I told you," the man said, his voice lowering slightly, "I'm just here waiting for..." "Step away." Wells exhaled slowly and did as he was told, raising his hands. The click of metal echoed louder than it should have as Daniels cuffed him, pressing him against the hood of the car. The man didn't resist, but he didn't shrink either. His composure only made Daniels angrier. "You're making a mistake," Wells said. Daniels laughed without humor. "That's what they all say." From behind, a woman's voice called out, trembling, "Hey." He didn't do anything. A small crowd had formed, half curious, half horrified. Someone held a phone up, recording every second. Daniels ignored them, pretending not to hear the mutters, words like racist, abuse, power trip. He'd heard it all before. Cameras couldn't show intent, he told himself. They didn't understand what it was like out here, how fast things could go wrong. He pushed Wells into the back of the squad car. The man sat upright, eyes fixed forward, jaw tight. No begging, no shouting. Just that same frustrating calm. Daniels slammed the door and stood there a moment, breathing hard. When he finally got back into the driver's seat, he caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. His face was flushed, sweat tracing a line down his temple. For a fleeting second, a thought crossed his mind, that maybe he'd gone too far, maybe he'd let something ugly drive him. But he shoved it away. He started the car, the blue and red lights bouncing off the dark glass of nearby buildings. "Should have just shown the damn ID," he muttered, as if that explained everything. Behind him, in the cage of the back seat, Jordan Wells watched the city blur by. His expression didn't change, but his eyes had a weight to them, the kind that saw further than the moment. He said nothing, even as Daniel's radio crackled with static, carrying the echo of a night that had already begun to unravel. The fluorescent lights of the precinct buzzed faintly, casting their usual cold glow on the peeling paint and stacks of paperwork that seemed to multiply overnight. Officer Daniels sat behind the metal desk, tapping a pen against a half-finished report. He was still breathing heavier than he wanted to admit. The adrenaline had faded, replaced with something murkier, irritation, maybe unease. Across from him, the man sat cuffed, posture straight, expression unreadable. Daniels didn't like that calm. It felt like defiance. Most people who ended up in this chair looked scared, angry, desperate. This one just looked patient. Too patient. "What's your name again?" Daniels asked, pretending not to remember, even though he'd run it 3 times already. The man's gaze lifted. "I already told you. Jordan Wells." Daniels grunted. "Occupation?" Wells hesitated, studying him for a beat, as if deciding how much truth the moment deserved. "Federal work." Daniels smirked. "Yeah, right, federal work. You mean like mail delivery, or are we talking conspiracies?" No reaction. Wells only crossed one leg over the other, his cuffs clinking lightly. "You'll find out soon enough." Daniel's pen stopped. The tone was off. Not cocky, not nervous, just assured. Like a man who knew something Daniels didn't. He stood, pacing slowly around the room. "You think this is a joke? You were loitering in front of a closed business at midnight. No ID, no explanation, no cooperation. That's enough to bring you in." Wells tilted his head slightly. "I gave you my ID. You just didn't read it." Daniels turned sharply. "What did you say?" "I said," Wells repeated calmly, "you didn't read it. You took it and never looked at the credentials inside." Daniels felt heat creep up his neck. He picked up the wallet sitting near the edge of the desk, flipping it open this time. His eyes moved past the driver's license, and stopped. Behind it was a badge. Not a fake one. Not one of those novelty things people buy online. An actual badge, gold embossed, marked Federal Bureau of Investigation. He blinked, heart thudding once, hard. "What?" Before he could finish, the door opened. Captain Ruiz stepped in, coffee in one hand, reading glasses in the other. She froze when she saw Wells. Her expression shifted instantly from irritation to alarm. "Officer Daniels," she said sharply, "why is this man in handcuffs?" Daniels stammered. He was acting suspicious, ma'am, and... "Suspicious," she interrupted. She turned to Wells, her voice softening. "Agent Wells, we've been expecting your team. You're early." Silence hit the room like a hammer. Daniels' mouth went dry. He looked between them, his mind racing to catch up. "Agent," he repeated, disbelief twisting his tone. Wells exhaled quietly, as if the moment was inevitable. "Special Agent Jordan Wells, FBI. I was here on a joint operation with your department. Or at least," he added, eyes flicking to Daniels, "I was supposed to be." The captain's face darkened. "Daniels," she said, each syllable cold and precise, "you detained a federal agent without probable cause." He opened his mouth, but the words tangled on the way out. I thought." "You thought what?" Ruiz snapped. "That a black man in a suit at night couldn't possibly belong there." Daniels felt a chill crawl up his spine. The cameras in the room seemed louder, the hum of their recording suddenly unbearable. Wells didn't gloat, didn't smirk. He just sat there, silent, watching the realization sink in. Ruiz moved to unlock the cuffs herself. "Agent Wells, on behalf of this department." "It's fine," Wells interrupted softly, rubbing his wrists once they were free. "I'm used to it." The words carried no anger, but the weight behind them filled the room anyway. Ruiz's jaw tightened. "That's not fine," she said. "And it won't happen again." She turned to Daniels. "You're suspended pending review. Internal Affairs will contact you in the morning." Daniels stood frozen, the edges of the world blurring. He wanted to defend himself, to say he wasn't like that he'd just been cautious. But the words sounded hollow even in his head. He thought of the bystanders outside, their phones raised, recording everything. Those videos were probably online by now. His name, his face, his badge number. Wells gathered his belongings with unhurried precision. "For what it's worth," he said, looking at Daniels one last time. "I don't hate you. I just hope this makes you see something you haven't before." Daniels couldn't answer. He stood there as Wells left the room, his badge glinting briefly in the harsh light. The captain followed, leaving him alone in the suffocating quiet. The clock ticked on the wall, steady, merciless. Daniels sank into the chair he'd made everyone else sit in, his own words echoing back at him. "You can explain it downtown if you'd prefer." The air outside the precinct felt colder than it should have. Officer Daniels stood on the cracked concrete steps, watching as Agent Jordan Wells walked down toward a sleek black SUV idling at the curb. The man moved with quiet composure, the kind that didn't need to raise its voice to command attention. Daniels had seen that kind of steadiness before, in people who'd faced things bigger than ego or power. But standing there, watching him, Daniels felt stripped down to something smaller. Wells paused before opening the car door. He turned, the streetlight catching the faint edge of a tired smile that wasn't really a smile at all. "You judged me before I spoke a word," he said, voice low but sharp enough to cut through the night. "You looked at me, and you already decided who I was. I didn't even have a chance to breathe before you made me the criminal." Daniels swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. "That's not." He stopped himself, because the words sounded false even before they left his mouth. Wells raised a hand slightly, not in anger, but to quiet him. "You'll get your hearing. Internal Affairs will handle it. And I'll make sure it's fairer than what you gave me." The statement wasn't a threat. It was a promise, one grounded in a kind of moral gravity Daniels couldn't argue with. Wells turned, got into the car, and the door closed with a soft, final click. The SUV pulled away, its taillights fading into the distance, leaving Daniels standing in the wash of red glow that slowly disappeared. He stayed there for a long time, the sounds of the city returning in fragments, a siren wailing somewhere far off, the hum of traffic, the soft buzz of a street lamp about to burn out. None of it grounded him. His uniform, once a badge of pride, suddenly felt like armor made of paper. Inside, the precinct was quieter than usual. A few officers glanced his way as he walked through the hall, their expressions unreadable, curiosity mixed with caution. The news had already spread. It didn't take long in places like this. Every whispered word followed him. The video, the mistake, the agent. He reached his locker, sat on the bench in front of it, and stared at his reflection in the dented metal. For the first time in years, he didn't see a cop. He saw a man who'd spent so long convincing himself he was keeping the world safe that he'd stopped noticing who he was really protecting, and who he was hurting. He could still hear Wells' words replaying in his mind. "You judged me before I spoke a word." It echoed with the same weight as the cuffs clicking shut, the same sound that used to mean control, now it just meant shame. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A notification flashed. Video of officer detaining federal agent goes viral. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He already knew what it showed. The firm shove against the hood, the crowd shouting, his own voice raised and impatient. The image he'd built of himself as a protector had crumbled in a matter of minutes. He sat there until the lights dimmed to night mode, the hum of the vending machine the only sound left. Ruiz had told him to go home, but home didn't feel like a place he deserved to be right now. Across town, Jordan Wells stood in his hotel room, the city skyline stretching out like a web of light. His wrists still carried faint red marks from the cuffs. He looked at them for a moment, then at his reflection in the window. He wasn't angry, at least, not in the way people expected. He was tired. Tired of the cycle, tired of walking into rooms where assumptions came first and explanations came second. He picked up his phone, a message waiting from his superior. "You all right?" "Heard what happened." Wells typed back, "I'm fine." The officer needs to learn. Maybe this will teach him. He paused before sending, then added, "But I don't want revenge. I just want it to mean something." Back at the station, Daniels finally gathered the courage to unpin his badge. The small, shining piece of metal had once felt like purpose. Now it just reflected a truth he couldn't hide from. Authority without empathy was just power, and power without conscience was something darker. He set the badge on the bench beside him, the sound of metal on wood unnervingly quiet. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of silence. He didn't know if Wells would ever forgive him. Maybe forgiveness wasn't the point. Maybe the lesson was supposed to linger, not as punishment, but as a mirror he could never look away from again. Outside, dawn was starting to break, painting the sky in gray-blue light. Daniels watched it through the precinct window, that thin moment between night and morning where everything looked the same but nothing was. Somewhere out there, Wells was probably on another case, walking into another room full of assumptions.